Good evening, everybody. This is meteorologist Andrew Pinero with this weekend outlook forecast. And this is going to be an interesting weekend outlook forecast because Florence is bearing down right now on the Carolinas. So let's take a look at some things. Alright, so here, let me see if I can just do something real quick before I switch over. Alright, let's see if that worked. Alright, I think that worked. So, let's switch over to the main camera. Oh, sorry, the computer screen. So now, we have 4 named tropical storms in the area. We got Florence, Isaac, Joyce, and Helene. Now, last weekend, I was talking about Florence, Joyce, and Helene after Florence, Isaac, and Helene. H-I. What comes after I? J. Joyce. So I'll just go through these real quick, which really don't look like anything much. This one's actually heading from the middle of the Atlantic east. Not a concern. Helene, same thing. Middle of the Atlantic heading northeast. For those in the United Kingdom, maybe around there. Isaac, heading pretty much due west from the Caribbean. Maybe you'll have an impact around Mesoamerica, Western Cuba. That's really about it. And now on to the main event. Florence. Big cone here. Weird, kind of like shrimp shaped. So it's bearing down the Carolinas. It is tropical storm strength right now. And it looks like it's going to stay that for a little bit and then start to weaken. So tropical storm warnings are still all along the coast here. Pretty much from South Carolina up to right just before the border of North Carolina going into Virginia. Just before there. And it's going to start to... It's been slowing down. And that's the issue. When it's slowing down, it's actually causing more storm surge. And storm surge is what happens when water gets pushed inland. So say you have 12 feet of storm surge, that means it's 12 feet above normal sea level, which causes a lot of issues. But this is the weekend outlook for us. So Florence will be making a little bit of an impact for the weekend. However, it's a good impact for us. We have what's called a Rex block setup. Now, let me see if I can bring this up. Let's go into this GOES experimental viewer. Can't really use visible because it's getting dark now, so we're going to use, for right now, shortwave infrared. Then we'll switch to a couple other infrareds. And here, let's go to sub-regional. Here we go. So this is the picture of Florence right now. Shortwave. Let's also look at mid-level water vapor. Eventually. I'm sure a lot of people are using this website right now. Come on. Maybe, maybe not. Well, that's upper level. Here's mid-level. Okay. So, this is what's starting to slow down. It's not a met land. And when it means land, drier air. And all this blue, that's the drier air. Green is the moist air. And let's play this. So, it's kind of sucking in drier air. And as it's doing this, it's dry slotting, essentially. And it's slowly weakening. Now, I talked about this in other videos before. we have counterclockwise rotation in the northern hemisphere with low pressure. But with very well organized systems, all that low pressure, that motion that goes inward because it's low pressure, has to go up. And when it goes up, it causes rising motion, which causes convection. And the rising motion stuff has to be flung outward. So you have this clockwise outward flow in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and this counterclockwise inward flow, convergence versus divergence, in the lower levels of the atmosphere. So if I go to the lower level water vapor, you still see a little bit, not as much. So we have that convergence coming into the middle of the eye, or what was left of the eye. And then if we go to the upper level water vapor, you'll see a lot more of this outward flow, this divergent flow, and it's spinning clockwise. Just because a low pressure at the surface is a high pressure in the upper atmosphere. That's just the way the physics works, so that's what we're seeing. So it's still a pretty well organized system. Now, for our area, let me see if I can go regional. This orangey yellow color, that's all drier air starting to come in. So the blue, we're still seeing pretty moist air, but we may be seeing some of this come into our area. And it's really interesting to see all this blocking happening. And blocking, I will show you. If we go to, let's see here. We're going to go to, actually, you know what? WPC. Surface analysis. Latest. There we go. So I talked about this in a live stream on Wednesday with Addison Green and Joe Chaffee. High pressure to the north, low pressure to the south. You have this figure eight motion going around the clockwise flow in the lower level of the atmosphere. Clockwise flow turning into counterclockwise flow. And that creates a figure eight motion. So all north and southward movements are canceled out by each other. And with that, you have no movement. Has to do the same thing with net forces. So with my phone here, I have force I'm using to push upward, while gravity is trying to pull the phone downward. So if I push up with the same amount of force that gravity is pushing downward with, that means no net movement. As soon as I stop applying a certain force, there is net movement. So that's what's happening here. No net movement. That's why Florence is just staying put for a little bit. But if we go back to the track here, look at some of these times. So we got Saturday, Sunday still didn't really move much. It still may be right around the South Carolina area. Then by Monday, it starts to turn northeastward. Then it starts going to Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio. And by the time we get to Tuesday, this cone of uncertainty turns a different look, and it gets wider. So that's because we really not sure too much about this. The D means depression, so tropical depression Florence may be affecting us by Tuesday, but that's still a big question mark. But at least with the weekend, which I'll focus on mostly, we have that blocking stuff, a blocking pattern set up. We go back to the shortwave. All this nice, calm air. You do have Florence to the south there. But we're going to have a nice weekend. Maybe a little shower chance here and there in the evening hours for Saturday night and Sunday night. But nothing really too much. It's really going to be a nice looking weekend because of the blocking pattern. Excuse me, we have high to the north, low to the south, no movement happening. Nice looking weekend where the high pressure is, and a terrible, terrible looking weekend where the low pressure is, which is Florence. Now, here, I zoom in here. We're still seeing some clouds come in from Florence And this is still going to be churning up the waters along with the other systems that are out there. We got, again, 4 named systems in the Atlantic Basin here, churning up the water. So with that, let me go back. Here we go. We're going to have some rip current issues and high surf issues along all the Jersey Shore and the South Shore of Long Island. Because in the Long Island Sound here and the North Shore, it's pretty well protected, so we're not really going to see too much there. But yeah, South Shore of Long Island, Jersey Shore, going into New England, all the coastline here. This may be affected by rip currents and high surf, so you definitely want to keep that in mind if you are heading out anywhere. Alright, let me take this down now and switch back to the main camera. And I'll pretty much end the video here. So this weekend, overall, not bad. Oh, let me just give you temperatures. Too much Florence stuff. Forgot to tell you about temperatures. I'm not going to bother switching back over here. I'm just going to read them through from the Moss data for you. So we got Moss, the MAV, and the MET. So it looks like we're going to be into upper 70s, low 80s for both days. Low 60s for the overnights. And dew point, let's see, it's actually getting drier through Sunday, and then it starts getting more moist again once Florence starts coming up our way into the northeast. Yeah, so overall, 70s to possibly the low 80s in a few little spots over the weekend. Overnight lows, not terrible. Low 60s, starts to get a bit drier in the low 60s for the dew point for the whole weekend, especially on Sunday, looks to be pretty good. Then going into Monday, that's when the dew points start to go back up. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up this weekend outlook video. This is meteorologist Andrew Pinero. Definitely stick around through the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button below so you get the latest weather updates, tropical updates, and even some gaming stuff and some car stuff. Have a great evening, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.